Just when SpaceX thought it had the upper hand in reusable rocketry, China drops a jaw-dropping move that has stunned the global space community. And yes, even Elon Musk is watching. A flawless escape test, a massive methane-powered rocket, coordinated satellite maneuvers in orbit. Is China not just catching up, but passing SpaceX in key areas? In today's Techmap episode, we're breaking down exactly what China just pulled off, why it's such a game-changer, and what it means for the future of the moon race. Buckle up because this one's big. At exactly 12:30 a.m. Eastern on June 17th, deep in the Gobi Desert at the Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center, China pulled off a high-stakes spaceflight test and nailed it. The China Manned Space Engineering Office, CMSEO, successfully conducted a dramatic pad abort test, also known as a zero-altitude escape test. The spotlight? Mengzhou, China's next-gen crewed spacecraft, is built not just to reach low Earth orbit, but to one day take astronauts all the way to the moon. So what's a pad abort test, and why does it matter? It's essentially a last-chance life-saving maneuver. If something goes wrong on the launch pad, astronauts need a way to escape fast and safely. This test showed that Mengzhou can do just that. It's a crucial building block for China's ambitious goal: landing astronauts on the moon by 2030. Here's what the test proved. Mengzhou's emergency system can blast the spacecraft off the ground in a split second, detach the return capsule from the escape tower, and deploy its parachutes flawlessly. The capsule then floated back down to the desert, cushioned by an airbag system, and landed exactly where it was supposed to. Everything worked like clockwork, proving the system can whisk astronauts away from danger and bring them safely home. Mengzhou also marks a major shift in safety design. Unlike China's older Shenzhou spacecraft, which relied on rockets for emergency thrust, Mengzhou takes full responsibility for its own safety systems. From abort control to crew protection, it's a self-contained guardian. Officials said the test verified a long list of critical systems: the initiation of the escape sequence, separation of components, trajectory control, and the life support systems on board, you name it. And it wasn't just a feel-good demo. Engineers gathered real-world flight data to confirm that the spacecraft behaves just like the simulations predicted. Bottom line, it wasn't just a test, it was a bold step forward. China is not just catching up in the space game, it's laying the groundwork to lead the next era of lunar exploration. This moment is being hailed as a giant leap for China's lunar dreams. It's more than a test. It's a clear signal that China is serious about going head-to-head with the United States in the next great space race. And it's not stopping here. Development is moving full speed ahead on other key pieces of the moon mission, like the powerful Long March 10 rocket and the Lanyu lunar lander. More tests are on the way. The recent test clearly highlights a major strength of China's space program. Step by step, China is making impressive progress, showing not only its resolve to catch up with the world's leading spacefaring nations, but possibly even surpass them. The Mengzhou, or Dream Vessel, marks a huge advancement over the current Shenzhou spacecraft. With a modular design, it's being developed in two distinct versions, one for low Earth orbit, LEO, and another tailored for crewed lunar missions. The partially reusable LEO variant can carry up to 7 astronauts to the Tiangong space station, or fewer crew members alongside 500 kilograms of cargo. Meanwhile, the lunar version, weighing up to 26 tons, will transport 3 astronauts into lunar orbit, where it will dock with a separately launched lunar lander. As said, what makes Mengzhou stand out is its full autonomy when it comes to abort control and crew safety. It's designed to be the workhorse of China's future space station operations and crewed missions to the moon. But Mengzhou isn't the only project pushing boundaries. China's space program also includes the development of the Long March 10 rocket and the Lanyu lunar lander. Both are advancing steadily and remain on track for further testing. The Long March 10, powered by YF-100K kerosene liquid oxygen engines, features 3 5-meter-wide core stages. It builds on the legacy of the Long March 5, with new launch facilities currently being constructed at Wenchang on Hainan Island. As the United States advances its in-orbit refueling technologies, China is also making strides. The country has conducted docking maneuvers between its Shijian-21 and Shijian-25 satellites in geostationary orbit. This is part of a broader effort to build refueling and maintenance capabilities in space, essential steps for future long-duration lunar missions. Shijian-21 was launched back in October 2021, with Shijian-25 joining it in orbit in January 2025. At first, they were positioned about 2 degrees apart in longitude, which translates to roughly 1,500 kilometers of separation in geostationary orbit. Shijian-21 had already made headlines when it docked with the inactive Beidou 2G2 navigation satellite and successfully towed it to a graveyard orbit, a special zone where defunct satellites are parked out of the way. After completing that mission, it seemed to go quiet, possibly because it had run low on fuel. But in a surprising twist, Shijian-21 recently fired up its thrusters again and began maneuvering toward Shijian-25. Simultaneously, Shijian-25 also adjusted its path, and the two began a coordinated orbital dance, carefully syncing up in what's known as a phased orbit to save fuel during the rendezvous. As of about a week ago, the two were expected to meet around June 11th. While there hasn't been any official word on the outcome yet, the event may have been closely watched by U.S. surveillance satellites, USA-270 and USA-271. These are part of the Geosynchronous Space Situational Awareness Program, GSSAP, which keeps a close eye on activity in that part of space. Once the docking occurs, Shijian-25 is expected to showcase some cutting-edge tech, like transferring fuel and providing life extension support to other spacecraft. These advances could be game changers, making space missions more sustainable by cutting costs, reducing the need for frequent satellite replacements, and helping to curb the growth of orbital debris. Still, China's program isn't without its drawbacks. One notable gap lies in its limited history of escape system testing. The recent Mengzhou pad Abort test is only the second in China's history. The first was in 1998 with the Shenzhou spacecraft. This long interval suggests that China may not yet have conducted as many safety validation tests as other leading space powers. That said, the latest success underscores the growing maturity of their capabilities. When comparing China to the United States, it's also clear that America still leads in several critical areas. While China is catching up fast, the U.S. maintains a head start in key aspects of lunar exploration, at least for now. Let's break down a striking example of the innovation gap in space tech. While China has only recently begun developing an independent launch abort system for its Mengzhou spacecraft, SpaceX was already integrating a fully functional system into Crew Dragon over a decade ago. Now, what makes Crew Dragon's abort system so impressive? It's powered by 8 Super Draco engines, embedded right into the capsule's side walls. Each one pumps out a staggering 71 kilonewtons, or about 16,000 pounds, of thrust. These engines aren't just for show. They allow for several critical abort modes, from a pad abort before liftoff, to an in-flight abort during ascent, and even a late-stage abort to reach a lower orbit safely if needed. This isn't just engineering, it's foresight. It's a clear reminder that the US and companies like SpaceX have consistently pushed the boundaries of space innovation far ahead of the curve. While China is catching up fast, there's no denying that in many ways they're still playing catch-up in a race the US started running years ago. So how about you? Do you think that at the current rate of progress, China can catch up with the United States in the space race? Share your thoughts in the comment section below. Anyway, if you love this deep dive, smash that like button, hit subscribe, and ring the bell. We're aiming for 150,000 subscribers, and we need you to get there. Check out our other videos on Starship, Artemis, and more. And let's keep exploring the cosmos together. Here's another fascinating update on China's fast-moving space program. Chinese private space startup Landspace achieved a major milestone on June 20th, with a successful static fire test as it works toward the first orbital launch of its Zhuge 3 rocket. At exactly midnight Eastern, all 9 engines of the Zhuge 3's stainless steel first stage roared to life at Launch Pad 2 in the Dongfeng Commercial Space Innovation Test Zone at the Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center in northwest China. The rocket's self-developed Tianke-12A engines, methane liquid oxygen powered, ignited one after the other and burned for 45 seconds. The test included gimbal control trials and wrapped up with a smooth shutdown as planned. Altogether, the engines generated a whopping 7,542 kilonewtons of thrust. Landspace called the test a major step forward, laying critical groundwork not just for the debut flight of Zhuge 3, but also for China's broader ambitions in reusable launch vehicle technology. This multi-engine firing brings China one step closer to mastering reusability, a key focus for future spaceflight. But major challenges still remain, like achieving orbit, ensuring safe recovery, and proving the rocket can fly again. Originally, the first orbital attempt for Zhuge 3 was scheduled for the third quarter of this year and is expected to carry a prototype of the reusable Haolong cargo spacecraft. This vehicle was developed by the Chengdu Aircraft Design Institute under AVIC and is part of a larger push for affordable cargo transport to the Tiangong space station. However, Landspace didn't provide an updated launch date in its latest statement. In a related achievement, Landspace completed a 10-kilometer suborbital flight and landing test with a prototype first stage back in September 2024. The company has set its sights on starting full recovery operations by 2026. Friday's static fire used a flight-ready first stage identical to the one intended for the rocket's inaugural mission. The test covered all aspects of launch readiness: propellant loading, tank pressurization, staged ignition, steady thrust performance, and a clean shutdown. According to Landspace, Zhuge 3 stands about 66 meters tall and weighs roughly 570 metric tons at liftoff. That's about 10 meters shorter than previous estimates, indicating that early launches might come with a reduced payload capacity. Eventually, the two-stage, 4.5-meter diameter Zhuge 3 is expected to weigh around 660 tons at launch, powered by upgraded Tianke-12B engines. When flying expendably, it could deliver up to 21,000 kilograms to low Earth orbit. If the first stage is recovered downrange, payload capacity drops slightly to 18,300 kilograms and to 12,500 kilograms if returning to the launch site. This test follows a similar milestone achieved by CAS Space with its Kinetica 2 rocket, which is also preparing for a debut flight in the near future, carrying its own prototype cargo spacecraft. Pablo Picasso, one of the most influential artists of the 20th century, once said, "Good artists copy, great artists steal." Let's unpack that for a second. A good artist might simply replicate what someone else has done, imitating the style or appearance without diving deeper. But a great artist, they go beyond imitation. They internalize the core idea, reshape it, and express it in a way that feels completely original. It's not about plagiarism. It's about transforming inspiration into innovation. Now let's apply that to the world of rocketry. Elon Musk is a perfect example of a great artist in this sense. He doesn't just borrow ideas, he reimagines them. Take commercial aviation, a field related to rockets. Musk drew from it to inspire the Starship design, aiming for a fully and rapidly reusable rocket, something that's never been done before. Think about it. Launching and landing a rocket safely is already a massive feat. But Musk pushed the envelope, targeting full recovery of both stages of the rocket and reducing turnaround time, something NASA struggled with in the Space Shuttle program. And it's not just Starship. The Dragon spacecraft is another brilliant example of borrowing from aviation. Notice those oval windows. Look familiar. That's because they resemble airplane windows, and that's no accident. In aviation, oval windows are a safety feature. They reduce stress points that can lead to cracks. This design principle is also applied to other parts of the aircraft, such as cargo doors and fuselage sections, for balanced stress management. By contrast, square windows on airplanes have sharp corners, where the edges meet at 90 degrees. These sharp corners cause extra stress to build up when the airplane's cabin is pressurized and depressurized many times during flights. Over time, this stress can make the metal around the corners weaken and crack. This problem caused some early jet airliners, like the de Havilland Comet in the 1950s, to break apart in mid-air because cracks started at those window corners, leading to sudden and dangerous failures. However, later studies showed that the Comet's passenger windows were actually rounded rectangles, not perfect squares, and other factors like metal fatigue and manufacturing issues also played big roles in the crashes. Still, the lesson was clear. Sharp corners in airplane windows can cause dangerous stress points, so modern planes use windows with rounded corners to keep the metal strong and safe. On the Dragon capsule, the oval windows serve the same purpose. NASA astronaut Don Pettit explains that the oval shape helps distribute stress evenly, especially during intense moments like launch and re-entry. It's kind of like how squeezing an egg from the sides won't break it. The shape makes it strong. Initially, Dragon's windows were made using a combo of glass and plastic, with materials like fused silica. Think ultra-tough, heat-resistant glass, capable of withstanding over 1,600 degrees Celsius during re-entry. NASA's shuttle program used tempered aluminosilicate glass, with acrylic on the hatches. And at the time, that was the largest piece of monolithic tempered glass ever made in the US. But glass came with its issues: brittleness, hidden flaws, and long-term weakness in space. To be safe, designers had to use thick, multi-layered panes. That meant more weight and more cost. After the Columbia disaster, engineers discovered that acrylic on the shuttle hatches actually survived re-entry better than glass or aluminum. That discovery changed everything. Plastics like acrylic and polycarbonate started gaining traction. Acrylic, in particular, offered major advantages. It held up better over time in space and performed well during re-entry. Instead of melting, it ablated, gradually wearing away in a safer manner. And because it was lighter and didn't require thick, multi-layer setups, it cut window weight by up to 75%. That's huge for reducing launch costs. Soon, acrylic windows were everywhere. The Orion spacecraft uses a mix of acrylic for pressure resistance and glass for thermal protection. Some commercial space vehicles now use all-plastic windows. SpaceX followed suit. About a year before Dragon's first demo flight, they switched to fully plastic window designs. To understand just how important strong windows are, let's go back to 2003. Astronaut Don Pettit was returning to Earth in a Soyuz capsule. Due to a guidance issue, he experienced over 8 Gs. Imagine feeling 8 times your body weight pressing down on you. The windows had to be insanely strong to handle that, and Dragons are even better today. And it's not just about safety. SpaceX also embraces what we might call mission-driven design. Just like airplane windows are built based on flight needs, Dragon's oval windows are optimized for space missions. They offer astronauts a wide cinematic view of Earth and space, like a giant high-def screen. Don Pettit even used one to snap incredible photos of the Milky Way. On its private Dragon missions, SpaceX takes this experience to the next level. That's seen in the Inspiration 4 mission in 2021, when SpaceX replaced the usual docking adapter on the Crew Dragon capsule with a large, dome-shaped glass window called the cupola. This cupola offers a 360-degree panoramic view of Earth and space, making it the largest single window ever flown in orbit, measuring nearly 2,000 square inches. The design is inspired by the European Space Agency's cupola module on the International Space Station, but is larger and shaped as a single, dome-like window rather than multiple smaller panes. Because the cupola replaces the docking port, the Crew Dragon with this window cannot dock with the ISS, so it is used for free-flying missions focused on giving passengers an immersive viewing experience. The cupola is made from advanced materials like acrylic and polycarbonate, with multiple layers that protect against space debris, maintain cabin pressure, and regulate temperature inside the spacecraft. This innovative window design enhances the experience of weightlessness and Earth observation for commercial space tourists, providing breathtaking views of the planet, stars, and celestial events such as sunrises and sunsets from orbit. So next time you look at Dragon's sleek capsule window, remember, it's a product of smart borrowing, brilliant innovation, and one artistically reimagined vision of spaceflight. Of course, SpaceX's creativity doesn't stop at windows. It extends to the parachute system used for Dragon's re-entry and landing as well. Dragon employs a set of drogue parachutes to stabilize the spacecraft after re-entry, and 4 main parachutes to decelerate it for a safe splashdown or landing. This parachute system is conceptually similar to the parachute recovery systems used in some aircraft and space capsules, designed to ensure controlled, reliable descent and landing by managing aerodynamic forces and stresses. Much like how aircraft deploy various control surfaces and landing gear to safely land. The kinds of aircraft that use parachute systems similar to SpaceX Dragons are primarily small light aircraft and some experimental or kit-built planes equipped with whole aircraft recovery parachute systems. For example, the Cirrus SR-20 and SR-22, popular 4-seat light aircraft, come standard with the Cirrus airframe parachute system. This system deploys a large parachute to slow the entire plane's descent in an emergency, allowing the whole aircraft to land safely, much like how Dragon uses parachutes to slow down for a safe splashdown. These parachute systems are designed to save the pilot and passengers by lowering the entire aircraft gently to the ground, similar in concept to Dragon's parachutes that slow the capsule's descent through the atmosphere for a safe landing in the ocean. Additionally, the aerodynamic shaping and materials of Dragon's exterior reflect aerospace engineering principles common in commercial aviation. The smooth, curved surfaces of the Dragon help reduce air resistance, drag, during atmospheric flight, similar to how airplane fuselages are designed to be streamlined for efficient flight. This shaping improves structural integrity by evenly distributing aerodynamic forces, enhancing safety and performance. Dragon also uses lightweight yet durable materials, a practice borrowed from commercial aviation, where reducing weight is crucial for fuel efficiency and safety. These materials help Dragon withstand the intense heat and pressure during re-entry, while keeping the spacecraft as light as possible, optimizing its performance. So beyond just the window design, SpaceX integrates commercial aviation-inspired features in Dragon's parachute recovery system and aerodynamic design to boost crew safety and mission success. In December 2023, SpaceX made a critical move to ensure its parachute supplier chain. Specifically, the company acquired Pioneer Aerospace, a company that provided components for Dragon spacecraft parachutes before filing for bankruptcy. Elon Musk's aerospace company paid $2.2 million to rescue Pioneer Aerospace, according to a Florida bankruptcy filing in November by Aviation Safety Resources, the parent company of Pioneer. Connecticut-based Pioneer has developed parachutes for space and other applications for decades. That work ranged from parafoils developed in the 1960s for potential use on Gemini spacecraft to parachutes flown on Mars lander missions and the OSIRIS-REx sample return capsule. It also supplied drogue chutes for SpaceX's Crew Dragon and its cargo variant. Pioneer Aerospace filed with the bankruptcy court on November 9, 2023, an asset purchase agreement with SpaceX. That included intellectual property for drag chutes and drogue chutes, specifically inclusive of SPX-000432 drogue chute. The bankruptcy court approved the sale on November 22nd. It is speculated that SpaceX made the acquisition to protect its supply chains. Parachutes pose very complex challenges, citing Phil McAllister, director of the Commercial Spaceflight Division at NASA headquarters. Commenting on lessons learned from the Commercial Crew program, McAllister said, "We've done parachutes during Apollo. How hard could it be? It could be very hard." He noted a lot of the Apollo-era parachute experience was from half a century ago and maybe wasn't documented as well as we had hoped. He added that there was not a large industrial base for large parachutes, which complicated development. Both SpaceX and Boeing, the other company with a NASA Commercial Crew contract, struggled to develop parachutes for their spacecraft, suffering test setbacks at times. Even after entering service, there were incidents such as lagging parachutes that opened later than expected, but did not jeopardize safety. NASA is facing criticism for its seemingly excessive spending. While the agency has implemented President Obama's initiative to foster the commercial space industry to cut costs for space access, the outcomes haven't entirely aligned with expectations. NASA's strategy of maintaining redundancy for transporting crew and cargo to the ISS relies on multiple providers: SpaceX's Dragon, Boeing's Starliner, and Sierra Space's Dream Chaser. Yet so far, only SpaceX's Dragon has proven consistently reliable for both crewed and cargo missions. Boeing's Starliner has suffered numerous technical issues, including propulsion system failures and software problems, which have delayed NASA's certification for this vehicle. Meanwhile, Dream Chaser, aimed at expanding cargo capabilities, has also faced ongoing delays and isn't ready to support NASA's needs. As a result, NASA finds itself heavily reliant on SpaceX for space access. Even Northrop Grumman's Cygnus spacecraft, another cargo option, lacks the reusability of Dragon, making it a less versatile solution. In practice, NASA's redundancy plan seems more theoretical than functional. This situation might not raise eyebrows if it weren't for the sheer amount of taxpayer money funding these efforts. The figures are startling. NASA has theoretically invested nearly $5 billion into Boeing's Starliner program, including a $4.2 billion contract awarded in 2014 and an additional $326 million for extra tasks since then. Thankfully, not all of this money has been dispersed. Boeing must complete a certain number of missions according to the contract to receive the full $4.2 billion. Still, despite this massive financial commitment, Boeing has yet to deliver a single completed mission for NASA. Sierra Nevada Corporation, now Sierra Space, under NASA's Commercial Crew Development Round 2, received $80 million initially, with potential bonuses bringing early funding to about $106.5 million. Dream Chaser's maiden launch, or a cargo mission to the ISS, was originally scheduled for 2021 to 2022, but has been postponed repeatedly and is now expected no earlier than May 2025. Now midway through 2025, its launch date remains uncertain. Early delays stemmed from challenges in validating Dream Chaser's safety systems and completing the rigorous flight tests required for NASA certification. These technical challenges demanded more testing and adjustments, further delaying progress. Additional setbacks came from the United Launch Alliance, ULA, and the U.S. Space Force, prioritizing certification of the Vulcan Centaur rocket for military use. To expedite this process, ULA opted to use a dummy payload for Vulcan's second flight instead of Dream Chaser, pushing the spacecraft's launch even further back. Although Dream Chaser has finished environmental testing and arrived at NASA's Kennedy Space Center for final preparations, its integration with the Vulcan rocket remains stalled due to these scheduling conflicts and certification demands. Some experts and members of the public are beginning to question whether NASA should concentrate its limited budget on a single, reliable supplier. rather than continuing to fund multiple underperforming programs. SpaceX's Falcon 9 rocket already offers a dependable, cost-effective solution for transporting cargo and crew to the ISS. Its Dragon spacecraft has an impressive track record, with 10 successful official crewed missions to the station and several private free-fly missions under its belt. Using multiple providers inevitably increases initial development costs and adds layers of complexity to program management. The risk only escalates when these programs prove inefficient. Inefficient projects often exceed both their original budgets and timelines. Studies show that large-scale technology initiatives typically run 45% over budget while delivering 56% less value than expected. This inefficiency translates into billions of taxpayer dollars wasted, resources that could otherwise fund other critical missions or invest in already proven technologies. Moreover, misallocating resources to failing projects can trap valuable capital and talent, preventing these assets from being channeled into more productive, forward-thinking efforts. This accumulation of financial risk can also distort organizational priorities and the broader space technology market. Sticking with inefficient initiatives often results in overly complex, outdated systems that are expensive to maintain and upgrade. These legacy systems drain budgets and stifle future innovation, creating what's known as technical debt. This reduces NASA's operational agility and efficiency over time. On the flip side, NASA's steadfast commitment to redundancy has its advocates. Much of this stems from the agency's earlier dependence on the Russian Soyuz spacecraft, following the retirement of the Space Shuttle. That experience highlighted the importance of having multiple options. In today's climate, especially amid tensions like the recent feud between President Trump and Elon Musk, there's a growing concern. What happens if SpaceX, for whatever reason, pulls out of the resupply program? Depending solely on one provider may seem cost-effective in the short term, but it introduces the risk of mission-stopping setbacks if that provider faces technical issues, policy changes, or decides to exit the program. NASA, therefore, sees value in absorbing higher upfront costs to ensure long-term safety, reliability, and strategic autonomy. This approach is also reflected in its ongoing seat barter agreement with Roscosmos, which extends through 2027, a clear sign of the agency's commitment to maintaining consistent space access. Finally, it's worth noting that advanced technologies, like Dream Chaser's winged vehicle design, take time to develop. Patience and investment are crucial when pioneering innovative systems that may become the backbone of future space missions. Dream Chaser would be a good choice if the Dragon and Falcon 9 fleets were grounded. It is even appreciated for its unique and advanced design features. It's drawn excitement not only for its resemblance to the Space Shuttle, but for being a sleeker, more efficient design. One of its major strengths is adaptability. Unlike the Shuttle, which required specific launch systems with solid rocket boosters, the Dream Chaser is launch agnostic. It can ride atop multiple types of rockets. That flexibility means more launch options and built-in backups. For cargo missions, Dream Chaser's wings are tucked in to fit inside a rocket's payload fairing. Once in orbit, its wings deploy for controlled flight. When it's upgraded for crewed missions, it won't need a payload fairing, allowing for an abort system in case something goes wrong during launch. To put its size into perspective, the Space Shuttle was about 122 feet, 37.2 meters, long, with a huge payload bay 18.3 meters long and 4.6 meters wide. It could carry up to 60,600 pounds into low Earth orbit. In contrast, Dream Chaser is just 30 feet, 9 meters long, about a quarter the size, but when paired with Sierra Space's Shooting Star cargo module, it can still deliver 5,500 kilograms of cargo to the ISS. That cargo includes essentials like food, tools, and science experiments. When it comes back to Earth, it lands gently on a runway, easing the return for fragile payloads. Dream Chaser's internal pressurized volume is 33 cubic meters, half the size of the shuttle's, but more manageable, sustainable, and protective. One key difference is in thermal protection. The shuttle used 24,000 heat shield tiles, 12 times more than Tenacity. These tiles were custom-shaped and notoriously difficult to inspect and maintain. NASA set a tight failure limit, no more than one faulty tile in every 108, but inspections were time-consuming. Dream Chaser simplifies that with just 2,000 tiles, each capable of withstanding temperatures up to 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit, while keeping the cabin at a cozy 350 degrees Fahrenheit. These tiles are not only fewer in number but are larger, 10 by 10 inches compared to the shuttle's 6 by 6, making them more durable and easier to maintain. They're also designed to withstand micrometeoroid and debris impacts, protecting future astronauts as well as cargo. To regulate heat in orbit, Sierra Space has added white tiles alongside the black ones, improving thermal efficiency. The tiles are bonded with room-temperature vulcanizing RTV silicone, a material known for its high heat resilience. Each tile bond is stress-tested with a mechanical pull to guarantee its integrity, because even a small failure could be catastrophic. These design choices showcase Sierra Space's commitment to building a safe, reliable, and cutting-edge spacecraft for the future. In a significant move, Sierra Space has partnered with Oak Ridge National Laboratory, ORNL, to develop a next-gen heat shield. This new thermal protection system uses silicon carbide-based materials, combining the strength of carbon fiber with the heat resistance of ceramics. It's designed to survive temperatures over 3,100 degrees Fahrenheit at speeds exceeding Mach 17, around 13,000 miles per hour. These advanced tiles have a dual-layer structure, a heat-resistant outer layer and an insulated inner layer. This combination enhances safety, cuts down on maintenance, and extends the life of the heat shield. Compared to the shuttle's heat shield, which was good for only about 5 missions a year, Dream Chaser's new tiles aim for at least 15 before needing major refurbishments, a huge leap forward. With NASA already contracted for ISS supply missions, this upgrade fits perfectly into their long-term goals. Lighter, more durable tiles also help maintain the spacecraft's aerodynamic profile after multiple re-entries. A consistent outer mold line is vital for repeat flights, as it ensures the vehicle flies exactly as designed. According to Greg Larson, ORNL's principal investigator, getting here wasn't easy. It took over 3 decades of combined research. This represents a massive step in overcoming one of spaceflight's toughest challenges, the reusable heat shield. Even Elon Musk has said that creating a reusable thermal protection system is the biggest engineering hurdle in space exploration. It's not just about surviving heat. It's about the structure, long-term performance, and cost. On May 30th, Spaceflight Now shared some fascinating updates on X about NASA's Human Landing System program as part of the fiscal year 2026 budget request. NASA's current focus is on a key milestone, SpaceX's Starship propellant transfer demonstration, scheduled for the 3rd quarter of 2026. This is a major step toward future lunar missions, as it allows Starship to refuel in orbit, a crucial requirement for successfully executing the Artemis program's goal of putting humans back on the moon. Around the same time, SpaceX is also planning an uncrewed lunar landing test using Starship. If all goes according to plan, that will set the stage for Artemis 3, a historic crewed mission targeted for June 2027. Then Artemis 4 would follow in December 2028. Meanwhile, both SpaceX and Blue Origin continue working on their lunar landers. SpaceX is pushing toward a critical design review in 2027, while Blue Origin is aiming for a preliminary design review of its human-class cargo delivery lander in 2026. On top of that, Blue Origin is progressing with the development of its Blue Moon Mark II system, a lander built for astronauts, and planned for use in NASA's Artemis 5 mission near the decade's end. But before Blue Moon Mark II takes the spotlight, Blue Origin has a big test ahead. It's the Blue Moon Mark I Pathfinder mission, a robotic lunar landing demo launching no earlier than August 2025, likely within 2025 if the schedule holds. The transit time to the moon is typically a few days, 3 to 5 days for most lunar missions, so the landing would occur shortly after launch, assuming no significant delays. This mission is designed to showcase precise landing technology and deliver scientific payloads for both NASA and commercial clients. Think of it as a vital shakedown cruise for the bigger and more ambitious Mark II lander that will eventually carry astronauts to the moon. So it can be said that Blue Origin is likely to land on the moon before SpaceX, at least a year sooner. However, when it comes to space exploration, delays are almost part of the journey. Nothing goes exactly as planned. Both NASA partners, SpaceX and Blue Origin, are pushing the limits of technology, but that also means they're bound to hit some snags. Technical hurdles, funding issues, and logistical roadblocks are all very real possibilities. Take Blue Origin's New Glenn rocket, for example. It's the heavy-lift vehicle meant to launch the Blue Moon lander, but it's only flown once and hasn't yet been fully proven. Over on SpaceX's side, Starship has had its share of test flight failures, which could also shift timelines. And let's talk about the difference in mission scope. Because not all landers are built for the same purpose. It's ironic that Blue Origin, often criticized for its slow pace, might actually outpace SpaceX in some areas of lunar delivery. Their Mk-1 lander is purpose-built for cargo, capable of hauling up to 3 metric tons to any spot on the moon. The 2025 Pathfinder mission will put it to the test, showing off landing accuracy and overall system reliability. The goal? A dependable lunar delivery truck for future missions. Meanwhile, SpaceX is going big, literally and figuratively. Starship HLS isn't just a lander. It's a mobile lunar base capable of supporting 4 astronauts for up to 30 days on the surface. But this ambition comes with major challenges, especially in creating reliable life support systems that regulate atmosphere, pressure, temperature, radiation shielding, and more. That's a whole other level compared to Blue Origin's uncrewed Mk-1, which sidesteps those complications. The Q3 2026 Starship test might not have people on board, but it's going to prove one of the most complicated feats in modern rocketry: ship-to-ship propellant transfer in orbit. This isn't just fueling a car, it's managing cryogenic liquids in microgravity, where fluid behavior is unpredictable. Add to that the need for precise autonomous docking and cryo management to prevent boil-off, and you've got one seriously advanced maneuver. In contrast, Blue Moon Mk-1's design is much simpler. It follows a single launch strategy. New Glenn launches the lander directly into a lunar transfer trajectory. No need for multiple launches or assembling parts in orbit. All the fuel for launch, transit, and landing is on board from the start. It's a plug-and-play approach that reduces risk and complexity, and that may be one reason Blue Origin could deliver earlier. Still, both landers face the same fundamental challenge: cryogenic propellant storage. Blue Origin's Mk-1 uses hydrolox, liquid hydrogen, and oxygen, which is incredibly hard to store due to hydrogen's low boiling point, around 20 Kelvin, and its tendency to evaporate. That's why Blue Origin is working on zero boil-off technology and advanced cryo-cooling systems. On the other hand, SpaceX is going with methalox, liquid methane and oxygen. It's more stable in space than hydrolox, but still demands innovations in orbital refueling and long-term storage. From a propulsion standpoint, Starship HLS is more complex. It has Raptor engines for orbital maneuvers and ascent, and separate radial thrusters for lunar landings. That means more systems to manage, and more points of potential failure. Blue Moon Mk-1 keeps it simple with its BE-7 engines, fine-tuned specifically for lunar descent and ascent. And finally, let's not forget the sheer size difference. Starship HLS is a behemoth, about 50 meters tall and 9 meters wide. It needs specialized systems for things like docking, and even an elevator to get astronauts to the surface. Blue Moon Mk1? It's compact at around 7 meters in diameter, optimized purely for cargo, and built with simplicity in mind. At the end of the day, it's not just a race, it's a comparison of philosophies. Ambition versus simplicity, crude complexity versus cargo reliability. And in space, as we've learned time and time again, the tortoise and the hare just might cross the finish line together. However, Blue Origin's real hurdles only come when they test a larger, crude lunar lander, Mark II. Like Starship HLS, Mark II is designed to carry up to 4 astronauts to the lunar surface for missions lasting up to 30 days, enabling longer stays than previous landers. The lander uses 3 BE-7 engines that run on liquid hydrogen and liquid oxygen, super cold fuels that need to be kept at minus 253 degrees Celsius for hydrogen and minus 183 degrees Celsius for oxygen. Managing these cryogenics in space is tough because even a tiny bit of heat can make them boil off. Blue Origin has to develop advanced tech to store these fuels in orbit for weeks, especially in the tricky, near-rectilinear halo orbit, where Artemis missions stage. And here's where it gets even wilder. Blue Moon Mark II needs in-orbit refueling to pull off its lunar missions. That's where Blue Origin's cislunar transporter comes in, a tug and tanker system that delivers propellant in space. But transferring cryogenic fluids in microgravity? That's a whole new level of hard. Liquids float around as droplets in space, so you need special systems to move them from one tank to another without losing any, or worse, causing a leak. Blue Origin also has to test this lander from top to bottom. They've got an uncrewed demo flight planned for 2027, where Mark II will launch, travel to near-rectilinear halo orbit, initially planned to dock with the Lunar Gateway, land on the Moon, and come back up. Plus, since Mark II is human-rated, they need to build life support systems for a 30-day stay on the lunar surface. Think air, water, radiation protection, and keeping the crew comfy in the Moon's crazy temperature swings. Testing all this on Earth is tricky too. They have to simulate lunar gravity, only 1/6 of Earth's, and make sure Mark II can land precisely within 100 meters of its target, especially at the lunar South Pole, where the terrain is super rugged. Blue Origin's got a tight schedule to hit their 2027 critical design review and be ready for Artemis 5, scheduled in 2030 if NASA does not cancel it. It's a big challenge, but they've got a $3.4 billion NASA contract to help make it happen. Compared to 100 metric tons of Starship's payload capacity, Blue Moon Mark II is more humble with a payload of around 20 metric tons, including crew and cargo. Timeline-wise, SpaceX is moving faster. They've got their uncrewed lunar landing demo in 2026 and Artemis 3 in 2027. While Blue Origin's uncrewed demo is in 2027, with their first crewed flight in 2030 for Artemis 3-5 if everything goes to plan. But SpaceX's scale makes things harder. They need multiple launches for refueling, which means more chances for something to go wrong. Blue Origin's cislunar transporter also needs refueling, but its system is smaller and more modular. Landing on the Moon is another big difference. Blue Moon Mark II is built for precision. It needs to land within 100 meters of its target, especially at the lunar South Pole, where the terrain is tricky. Starship HLS, with its massive thrust, has to be careful not to blast lunar soil everywhere when it lands, which could damage nearby equipment. SpaceX is working on special landing thrusters to minimize this, but it's a big engineering challenge. And here's the kicker. SpaceX has way more flight experience. They've been launching and landing Starship prototypes since 2020, with dozens of test flights under their belt by 2025. Blue Origin is still catching up. Their New Glenn rocket hasn't even launched for a second time as of mid-2025, and they're relying on its success to get Mark II into space. So, while Blue Origin's challenges are more focused, SpaceX's ambitious scale and tight timeline make their path just as tough. Blue Origin, New Glen's maiden launch took place on January 16, 2025, from Launch Complex 36 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida. The mission marked Blue Origin's debut into orbital flight, successfully reaching its intended orbit with the Blue Ring Pathfinder payload after 2 successful burns of the BE-3U engines on the second stage. The primary objective of achieving orbit was accomplished, a significant milestone for the company. However, the mission faced a setback with the reusable first stage, nicknamed "So You're Telling Me There's a Chance." The booster was lost during its descent after separating from the upper stage, traveling at approximately Mach 5.5, around 6,700 kilometers per hour or 4,200 miles per hour, at an altitude of 25.7 kilometers, 84,226 feet, before telemetry was lost. The failure to land on the sea-based landing platform vessel 1, Jacqueline, triggered a mishap investigation led by Blue Origin, with oversight from the FAA. The investigation, completed by March 31, 2025, identified the issue as the 3 BE-4 engines failing to reignite properly during the landing sequence. Whenever we talk about standout spacecraft, it's hard not to mention Sierra Space's Dream Chaser. This sleek, reusable spaceplane instantly brings to mind NASA's legendary Space Shuttle, thanks to its distinctive winged shape and airplane-style runway landings. But Dream Chaser isn't just a nostalgic nod to the past, it's a high-tech evolution. It takes the shuttle's flexibility and upgrades it with modern engineering, aiming to fix many of the issues that held the shuttle back. Designed for both cargo and eventually crewed missions, Dream Chaser is quickly emerging as a strong candidate to carry on the shuttle's legacy. Dream Chaser's journey hasn't been without hurdles. The concept first took flight in 2004 with SpaceDev, a company pushing the boundaries of space tech. SpaceDev laid the foundation with a lifting body design inspired by older NASA projects like the HL-20. A major shift came in 2008 when Sierra Nevada Corporation acquired SpaceDev, bringing Dream Chaser under its wing. SNC accelerated the spacecraft's development, securing NASA funding through Space Act agreements under the Commercial Crew Development Program. They also joined the race for NASA's Commercial Crew Program and Commercial Resupply Services 2 contracts. But not everything went smoothly. In 2014, Dream Chaser lost out in NASA's Commercial Crew Transportation Capability phase. NASA instead picked Boeing's Starliner and SpaceX's Crew Dragon. SNC was not happy, so they protested the decision to the GAO in September 2014, claiming inconsistencies in the selection process. However, in January 2015, the GAO upheld NASA's decision, finding the evaluation was fair. Fortunately, the tide turned in January 2016, when NASA selected Dream Chaser, along with SpaceX's Cargo Dragon and Northrop Grumman's Cygnus, for CRS-2, awarding contracts to deliver supplies to the International Space Station. To boost its space ambitions, SNC created a new entity in April 2021, Sierra Space Corporation. As a fully independent subsidiary, SSC would focus exclusively on commercial space ventures, with Dream Chaser leading the charge. Despite the progress, Dream Chaser remains grounded, still awaiting its debut flight atop ULA's Vulcan Centaur rocket. Had everything gone as planned, its first launch could have happened back in November 2016, after SNC's early success with NASA's Commercial Crew Integrated Capability. Later, following the CRS-2 contract award, the inaugural launch, or the first ISS resupply mission, was targeted for late 2021. That launch was then pushed to 2022, and again further delayed to 2025 due to pandemic-related and integration delays. And with ongoing internal struggles at ULA, the launch date still hangs in uncertainty. Dream Chaser's extended delays have been a bit of a letdown for the space community, especially considering its impressive capabilities. Still, that doesn't take away from how cool and innovative the vehicle really is. NASA's decision to select it for the CRS-2 program speaks volumes. First up, Dream Chaser has a superpower. It can bring cargo back to Earth like no other. Unlike SpaceX's Cargo Dragon, which splashes down in the ocean, or Cygnus, which burns up on re-entry, Dream Chaser lands on a runway, just like an airplane, at a gentle 1.5 G. That's a smooth ride for delicate science experiments. Why does this matter? Time-sensitive research, like biology or physics experiments done in microgravity, needs to get back to labs fast. Dream Chaser's runway landing means NASA can grab those samples right away, keeping the science fresh. It's like overnight shipping, but from space. In the beginning, SpaceX had ambitious plans for the Dragon spacecraft to land on solid ground using a propulsive landing, basically firing its engines to slow down for a smooth touchdown. But NASA's safety standards were extremely strict, and that forced SpaceX to switch gears and go with the more traditional splashdown method. The reasoning? Water offers a much softer and safer cushion for astronauts during landing. Still, SpaceX wasn't ready to give up on propulsive landing altogether. In September 2024, they revealed a long-anticipated upgrade that would let Dragon use its engines if the parachutes ever failed, adding a critical layer of redundancy NASA requires. Now contrast that with Boeing's Starliner. It's designed only for ground landings, meaning it doesn't have a water landing as a backup. And that comes with its own set of problems. CST-100 relies on parachutes and airbags to land safely on solid ground. But those parachutes have to deploy at the exact right moment and inflate perfectly. In a 2019 test, one of the 3 chutes failed to open, definitely a red flag for safety. Then there are the airbags, which are supposed to cushion the impact just before touchdown, but they have to deploy evenly and on time. If they don't, the capsule could slam into the ground at a bad angle, or with too much force. And when you're landing in a place like White Sands, New Mexico, with rocky, uneven terrain, even a small miscalculation can turn dangerous fast. Ground landings also require pinpoint accuracy. There's no ocean to help absorb an off-target descent. Wind and weather can throw things off, and the spacecraft has to adjust on the fly. Sure, landing on land makes it easier to reach the crew quickly, but the impact forces are a lot higher. NASA and Boeing have to prove that astronauts can walk away safely, and that medical teams can get to them fast if needed. This is where space planes, like Dream Chaser, really shine. They're designed to land softly on a runway, partly thanks to their landing gear setup. Instead of a traditional nose wheel, Dream Chaser uses 2 main wheels and a lightweight nose skid. That skid doesn't need complex cooling systems or extra heat shielding, making the design more efficient while still being safe. Dream Chaser's gear system is similar to the old space shuttles, but here's the catch: it can't retract. So once it's deployed, it has to work flawlessly. Owing to the shuttle's high-speed landing approach and the inability to abort the landing attempt, the landing gear had to deploy flawlessly on the initial attempt without fail. When it comes to technical innovation, Sierra Space has really put the spotlight on enhancing Dream Chaser's heat shield with cutting-edge tech. The spacecraft is covered with 2,000 thermal protection system tiles, including on the control surfaces. These tiles can withstand extreme temperatures, up to 1,650 degrees Celsius, about 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit. Because of Dream Chaser's unique, curved shape, each tile must be precisely crafted to fit the fuselage contours. They average about 10 times 10 inches, which is larger than those used on Dragon. This helps cut down the number of tiles and makes installation a bit easier, although the presence of many small triangular pieces still adds complexity. The tiles come in 2 colors, black and white. White tiles are used in orbit because they reflect heat and help keep the internal systems cool. Black tiles, on the other hand, absorb and dissipate radiant heat more effectively, helping the spacecraft cool down more quickly once it heats up. These tiles are bonded to the vehicle using a room-temperature vulcanizing silicone. ensuring they stay attached throughout the mission. Sierra Space believes their TPS tiles incorporate numerous innovations, drawing on lessons from NASA's Space Shuttle program. They say these new tiles are both lighter and stronger than previous versions. Back in 2015, the Sierra Nevada Corporation put the tiles through rigorous testing at NASA's Ames Research Center and Johnson Space Center, including more than 100 arc jet cycles and radiant heat tests. The new silica-based coating showed they could offer the same thermal protection as older systems, but at a significantly lower cost. That said, Tenacity's heat shield is still in ground testing and hasn't yet been flight-proven like Dragon's. Now, over on the SpaceX side, the Dragon capsule uses two types of heat shields, Pika-X and SPAM. Pika-X is the main shield, made up of about 45 tiles, each roughly 8 centimeters thick and weighing around 1 kilogram. This system is single-use. The SPAM component is used on the rear shell and is made from a kind of synthetic foam. Dragon's heat shield has a solid track record. After over a decade of flights, there haven't been any life-threatening failures. Still, the system isn't flawless. For example, in May 2022, a heat shield segment meant for the Crew 5 mission failed an acceptance test because of a manufacturing defect. But overall, SpaceX has built up years of real-world experience with their heat shield tech through ongoing research, testing, and missions, giving them a huge data advantage in operational performance. While SpaceX's Dragon was originally planned to be reusable 5 times, this number for Dream Chaser is up to 15. Reusability means cost savings, and who doesn't love a good deal? Plus, it's got this cool add-on called the Shooting Star module. It boosts cargo capacity to 12,000 pounds and takes out the trash, literally, by burning up ISS waste on re-entry. And with launches on ULA's Vulcan Centaur rocket and landings on runways worldwide, Dream Chaser's got serious swagger. NASA didn't pick Dream Chaser out of nowhere. They'd been backing it for years through programs like Commercial Crew Development. Even after passing on the crewed version in 2014, NASA knew Sierra Space had the chops to make the cargo version work. Here's the kicker. The cargo version shares about 85% of its tech with the crewed design. That means Sierra Space could build the crewed version in years of work, saving time and money. Smart move, right? On the other hand, compared to the two vehicles of Boeing and SpaceX, Sierra Space's vehicle still shows some drawbacks. That explains why it got rejected by NASA for the Commercial Crew program. This program aimed to develop safe, reliable, and cost-effective crew transportation to the ISS. NASA's selection process evaluated proposals based on technical approach, management approach, past performance, and cost. The U.S. Government Accountability Office noted that Boeing's proposal was considered the strongest overall in terms of technical and management approaches, as well as past performance, despite its higher price. SpaceX, while not rated as highly as Boeing in some areas, offered a significantly lower price, making it a better value for NASA.